Well, hello again. I wanted to do another Abandoning Perfection journal, and today I'm going to do several prompts. One of them is to use blue in several different mediums, and you saw that I showed you the ink and the acrylic ink, the ink pad, and the acrylic paint. I also have that's graph paper, and the lines on the graph paper are blue. And I'm going to use that. I decided I wanted to actually cover that page with something that was blue and then that everything else would show on. I'm just using glitter glue, art glitter glue, to stick that paper down. Um, I didn't think the blue mediums were going to show up very well on that magazine page. So that's why I wanted to add something where the blue mediums would show up a little bit. Kind of like the torn edge on that. I just tore it and I thought, yeah, I think I'll leave it that way. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use another prompt, and it's called cut a stencil out of paper. And I actually took a magazine and took the cover of a magazine, and I'm sort of cutting a snowflake kind of shape, although it's kind of floral as well. Excuse me, I do apologize. Um, I did some cutting and then I folded it back. It was too thick for me to fold all the folds to cut it at one time. So what I did was I cut part of the ovals, little things I was cutting into the paper, and then I refolded it. And this is a pretty big stencil, and my page is not that big, but I was just, I wanted to cut it, and that was the one way I knew I could get it to where I could cut it pretty well. So I'm only really going to use half of the stencil, and I'm going to use sort of a turquoise colored blue ink, and I'm just using the foam pad and squishing it through the stencil. Quite frankly, the stencil worked very well for that. I was real pleased. I was very pleased how well that magazine cover worked as paper for a stencil. It held up very well, even when I started using it with paint. Now, I didn't use it with a paintbrush. I'll show you here in a few minutes what it looks like. The next thing I'm going to use is paint, and I'm trying to decide which color and how I'm going to actually use it. And I end up sort of layering the stencil over the original ink that I did, kind of letting the stencil go over parts of it, but not all of it, so that it will come up and be sort of layered in there. And I'm just using a little makeup sponge, and I'm putting the paint on pretty thin. I didn't want to have to wait forever and ever for the paint to dry. So by putting it on pretty thin, it dries pretty fast. And that's that Dollar Tree paint. So it's pretty thin in the first place. Um, it's kind of watered down and it's kind of translucent. It's not transparent by any means, but it also allows some of the color from behind to show up. I really like how this is going. So what I decide to do is add another layer and use a Sharpie. And I kind of, honestly, I feel like I kind of ruined it. It gets worse though. Just wait, it's going to get worse. really liked what I had just a minute ago, and I don't know, I just took it too far. Sometimes you can do that. You can just take it too far. I was also trying to use multiple um, mediums in blue, and I just added too much. And even this wasn't as bad as it's going to get. I promise, it gets worse. But see, even drawing around that magazine cover worked real well as a stencil. And see, that's not too bad. It's not too bad. Um, and I decided to add another medium, and so I'm going to put some dots on it with this little brush marker. You know, sometimes we need to learn when well enough is done. And if I had left it, I think I would have been happier with it. But I also had a plan here, you know, I had a plan of all of the steps I was going to use today. And um, see, it looks pretty good. It's not too bad, but this is where I get into trouble. The next step I wanted to use was to drip ink on the page. And that's acrylic ink. And the dripping of the ink just, it's not something I do very often, and it just really didn't work on this page, I think. Uh, I was, first off, I put little tiny drops, which I should have put bigger drops. And I'm trying to show you and trying to have it run, but it's running, but not very well. And I turn it, and it doesn't work very well. And I think, okay, these lines are just, you know, okay, no, should have left it alone. That's when I decided to take the baby wipe and pick up some of it and move it around. And I decide, okay, well, I don't like that, so I'm going to add some more big drops. Run it the other way. I love dripped paint, but on this page, I shouldn't have put it there. But then this is about abandoning perfection and going with the flow. So um, it's there, and I decide, okay, I'm going to dry it up just a little bit, just so that I can stop because it was just too runny. So, oh, I'm looking for the page number. That's. I decided, okay, this is it. It's ugly. That's okay. It's ugly, but I'm gonna put the page number on it and call it done. Then I decide that since that's still wet and I can't go on to a different page, I will go ahead and add my next prompts to this same page. And the next prompts were to add masking tape and paint over it, draw with a crayon and paint over it, and then add drips of alcohol before the paint is dry. And here's what happens when you make a plan to what you're going to do, and then it's not working out. And of course, some days it just doesn't work out. And apparently, since I'd already messed up one page, I was going to mess up the other page. So uh, here I am putting on masking tape to add texture. That was the whole plan, is to add texture with the masking tape. And this is like, I don't know, painful to tear each individual piece of masking tape apart. So I unroll a bunch and then start tearing pieces off. Um, Needless to say, to add tape, to add texture, takes a few minutes. And I start when I bent one, and I start actually bending and making little um, poochy places of tape. That's the only word I can think of, but it's like little spots where the tape actually sticks up on purpose. And I've done it in several places now that it's actually very dimensional. And honestly, I really liked that. It's something that I might try using again. I do have a concern that that masking tape might eventually come off of that paper. If I were going to use masking tape on something like a canvas or something that I thought was going to have to last a long time, I probably would put a layer of Mod Podge under it and then stick the masking tape on it. Just because I don't think the glue on the masking tape it may come off eventually. It might not, but I'm not going to worry about it because this is just an art journal to play in. It's abandoning perfection. The next prompt was to color or draw with a crayon. And I've done that in other things under the in the book. And I just decided I was going to add some underlying colors to the masking tape. And you can't see the yellow real well, but I sort of felt like it would show through when I painted over it. So now I'm going to put paint on there. And I'm just going to use that little sponge and kind of paint it on like it was a brush, just because I was lazy and didn't get a brush out. And you can honestly see on camera the crayon better than I could up close and personal. It wasn't showing up very much. And it shows on the camera much better. I decided plain blue is kind of boring. And honestly, I'm liking the texture that the folded up pieces of masking tape made. Um, Very nature-like, like possibly like tree bark or something like that. I think you could do some very, very interesting things with that technique if you had something else you were doing with it. That's where I decided that the blue was just kind of a little boring. So it just so happened the lime green was out on my table. So I start adding in some different colors. I've always liked cobalt blue and lime green together. It's a color combination I use quite a bit. So it didn't surprise me that I grabbed it and started working with it. Uh, you have sort of lost the visual of the where the crayon is underneath. So what I start doing is wiping the paint off of where the crayon is showing through. it allows the crayon to show through a little bit more. And there again, I should have stopped right there. It wasn't too bad. It would have been an interesting um, background for something. But then I realized I had another prompt that I really, really, really wanted to do, and I think, okay, I'm done, and I should have stopped. Apparently, I just didn't know when to stop this afternoon. It was just one of those things. Okay, so here I'm even putting my page number on, and I should have left it alone because it's not too bad. I mean, it's not great, but it's not too bad. And that's when I realized that, oh, I had another prompt I wanted to do. And I guess I'm reading the prompt list and I'm going, oh no, I wanted to do this, which is to add drips of alcohol before the paint is dry. Well, the paint's not completely dry, but apparently it was a little bit dry. Now, it did sort of do some stuff, but it wasn't doing much. And it's like, okay, like I said, today was the day I didn't know when to leave well enough alone. Um, so I start taking everything off. And even that, if I just stopped, it's like, okay, you don't know when to stop. So I decided, okay, I'm going to put paint back on it, and then I'm going to drip the alcohol on it. So I get my paint and I just slime the paint all over with my hand. Okay. Now my page number is already on there, so I'm having to avoid my page number. I put on some green because, you know. Oh. And of course, now I'm all messy, so I can't even open the alcohol bottle. And I think, oh, okay, so the alcohol bottle, the big thing of alcohol bottle didn't really work. Maybe the drips were too big, maybe it was too much. So I reach over and I get, oh, I know what happened. I decided I have to get it level, so I'm trying to get it leveled up. Because the book is now fat, and so one side's higher than the other, and I didn't want the alcohol all run to the middle. That was what was going on there. And so that's when I decided that maybe my drips were too big. Now, the paint is obviously not dry at this stage, so I'm trying to drip alcohol in a more precise fashion. Doesn't work. Get the big bottle, drop some alcohol on there, and basically it does nothing, absolutely nothing. So I should have just left it alone a while ago. I mean, it's not like I don't, that this isn't a pretty background or whatever, but it just, I don't know. It was just one of those days, guys. I cannot tell you how I felt when I got all finished. I was like, why could I just not leave well enough alone? I don't know. I'm like watching it, it's not drying. Anyways, this is how it is. That is the prompts for today's Abandoning Perfection Journal. I hope you enjoyed this mess. Now, please go have fun, make some art. Bye bye.